Here we are, Fairbanks, Alaska. We got off the plane yesterday. We put our bikes together. We took them for a test ride. Everything looks good. And now the ride is going to start pretty soon. We're going to start at North Pole, Alaska. And yes, there is a place called North Pole, Alaska, where Santa Claus lives when he's not delivering toys at Christmas time. And he even made me an honorary elf when I talked to him there, because we were delivering bicycles to children in Panama. All during this journey, we have been raising money for the children of Panama to buy them bicycles so the kids can get to school from a long distance away, or if they're too poor, they can have a bicycle. Some of the local bike riders are going to accompany us, and we're going to start off on this journey. This episode, we're going to take you from North Pole, Alaska to Vancouver, and we're going to show you the mountains and the rivers and the bears and the moose and other bike packers heading north to the Arctic Circle. So it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to get started. Let's go again. I arrived in Fairbanks, Alaska for the sole purpose, well, actually there was two purposes. One, to celebrate my 80th birthday. I never thought I'd make it to 80, so I wanted to celebrate it with a big event. And two, I wanted to have an event that demonstrated that once you reach retirement, your life isn't over, that old people are not useless, that we can still do a lot of things. So we flew to Fairbanks, Alaska to start our Odyssey, which is going to take us all the way to Panama, about 14,000 kilometers, and it's going to take 5 months and 5 days. The flight up to Alaska was uneventful. We got lucky when we changed planes in Anchorage. About 30 minutes later, and landed in Fairbanks with the hopes of seeing bears and moose and being met by my team of Kim and Yoda, who had driven the car up from Edmonton, our support vehicle, and from there we're going to stay in our friend's place in Fairbanks and get ready and get some purchasing done so we can start on this long journey. What we'll find in this particular journey as we trade our sofa for a bicycle seat, you're going to experience my experience of visiting and passing through Mexico and Central America, and we'll get a feel for how Latin Americans celebrate their family lives. Are they friendly? Are they not friendly? Is the food worth eating or is it not worth eating? Is the music something that we can learn to appreciate? The ranchero music of Mexico with the more salsa type of music as we get closer to Panama. The cultures are going to be different. The language certainly is different, that's for sure. Are they going to understand me when I get to a restaurant and order the food, or are they going to have to get a Google Translator out and talk to people that way? It will be an experience. You're going to meet a lot of friendly people, a lot of friendly police, especially in Mexico, who helped us a great deal. So cultures are different. United States and Canada. I'm from Edmonton here in Canada originally, so we're kind of laid back, we're kind of introverted a bit, but we're really helpful. Let's find out what the Latin Americans are like and how they welcome us into their countries and their homes during this journey. I don't want you to think that I did this all by myself. When I sat and planned this, I spent a long time thinking of who and how and where, and part of the who was, who did I need? Well, I needed drivers, and one driver wasn't sufficient. I thought at least they needed somebody in the van to keep them company on the long, boring days where I'm cycling 100K or 120K, but it doesn't take long to drive that distance, so they spend a lot of time sitting in the car. So 2 drivers. I needed somebody to cycle with me just to keep me company on the road or be close by in case we needed repair, mechanical repair, a flat tire or something. I also thought I needed some people with some skills for media. who can fly a drone, who can operate a 360 camera, things like that. And most important, who can speak Spanish. So I needed somebody to help us navigate our way through the Spanish-speaking countries of Mexico and Central America. So in the end, we ended up with Kim from Netherlands via Denmark. She had already driven from Seattle down to Argentina and had not participated in the Canadian Alaska to Seattle. So she was only joining us for that segment of the trip, but she is a talented photographer and a drone operator, driver, and companion for Yoda. And Yoda's from Greece, not far from Athens, and that team worked out really well. The two of them in the car together, they got along well. Yoda's job was driving, sharing in the cooking, keeping the books, making sure we had accommodation lined up, because in North America we did not pre-book. So quite often we had to wait for a text to come in from Yoda to say where we're going to sleep that night. Wayne, my friend from Edmonton, he was along for company. He was going to ride with me, and he did ride with me for the whole length of time, all the way down to Panama. And it was nice to have another rider, chat every now and then on the road. Unfortunately, Guinness World Record said I couldn't be too close to him. I couldn't draft behind him. I had to stay 3 meters away. So it wasn't the easiest thing to chat when you're that distance away, but we had company on the road. When we got to the United States, we picked up another, Kyle. Kyle's from Chicago, and Kyle is an experienced stage manager. He's an experienced drone flyer, all kinds of media. He was a very good addition that took over all the media, because Kim had left us in Vancouver and Kyle went all the way to Panama. He was also experienced with life in Central America. It wasn't until we got to Tijuana and crossed the border into Mexico that Joanna joined us, and Joanna is a citizen of Costa Rica and from Colombia, and was my Spanish-speaking person who did a remarkable job of translating and getting us through all the border crossings and the paperwork and everything that needed to be done. I don't know how we could have done it without a Spanish-speaking person. So that was our crew. It worked out well. It was a really good selection, and I'm quite happy, and without them I would never have made it. Their assistance was outstanding, incredible, and we certainly celebrated our achievements. And certainly when we got to Panama, we were very excited that the team had managed to get us through, and we scored the big winning touchdown as we pulled into Panama. And the big thanks goes to that team, and you'll see them on lots of the episodes and footage that we're filming. On the journey that started in Fairbanks, we flew into Fairbanks, and first thing you see when you fly into Alaska are big stuffed moose in the airport. And surprising, when we landed in Fairbanks, it was like 30 degrees. Very hot, forest fires, smoky, and we ended up having a beautiful birthday for Wayne on the banks of the river there in Fairbanks, under the sign, "Welcome to Alaska." Things that I remember a lot about Alaska and the Yukon. First, we saw a lot of moose, a lot of wildlife. We saw moose almost every day, 2, 3. We got some great pictures. Bears, we never saw any grizzlies, but we saw a lot of black bears, foxes, and other wildlife. The amount of water that is coming off the mountains, the glaciers in Alaska and the Yukon and northern British Columbia, people just can't imagine that probably are living in the lower 48 states or in Latin America. The lakes and the rivers and places where we're at, 3 rivers converge, and they're just flowing to the Pacific in our case, and emptying all that fresh water into the Pacific. Remarkable glaciers in Stewart, British Columbia, and along the way in the distance in the mountains. And the number of trees, the black spruce trees, by the millions. And it was like, oh, if I never see another tree again, that will be great because there's millions and millions of them. The long straight roads, in particular in the northern part of Alaska, Yukon, you just think, wow, that looks so far, but a few kilometers on, you've covered it, 10K, 100K have covered. Very little traffic. Then we reached a number of places where we had the wild camp, set it up with beautiful vistas over the mountains. And one particular time, we were camping not far out of Tok, Alaska, and I heard noises at night, water splashing. And I thought, who's letting the children swim at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night? So I looked out the window, and there was a mother moose and a calf that had just swam across the lake, and they were coming up through the weeds, and they walking down the road maybe 1 or 2 meters in front of my sleeping accommodation, which was in the back of my van, and then further down the road. It was an incredible sight, and it was a typical sight that people probably think you always see in Alaska and northern Canada. The scenery changed a lot, or once we hit the Yukon, we left 30-degree weather and fire warnings around and smoke in the sky. Made breathing a little difficult at first. And we got to the Yukon and across the Canadian border, and all of a sudden we got cold, rain, 6 degrees, and we're riding all day in rain with maybe plastic bags on my feet and my hands, trying to keep warm. Yoda and Kim went out and bought dishwashing rubber gloves so that I could wear them as well. It was a miserable time in that first part of trying to stay warm, and it was always great to get to the campground and have Yoda and Kim prepared a big bowl of hot soup or something that we could have at that point in time. We did survive that going through northern British Columbia, and the weather changed, and we headed down south, and we sort of got back in civilization again on the Yellowhead Highway that goes out to Prince Rupert through Prince George. And now we're on a highway with lots of traffic and lumber trucks going by, and you could smell the pine trees, the cut logs with cedar and that as they went by. We hadn't had much noise. Now we got traffic noise, we got horns honking, and it was a surprise to be back into civilization. And even though we suffered from the cold and the rain, we kind of wish we went back there and could do it all over again. But the ride into Prince George was marvelous. I'd forgotten how many lakes were along the highway, and places like Burns Lake and all the other towns that are situated there. It is remarkable scenery with a lot of farmland, cattle country, hay, and a few crops. From Prince George we head south down to 100 Mile House, Williams Lake, heading down that way, and we got back into rain again, and some climbing that took us over the hills. Then the landscape changes once again as we pull into Inuit, and it becomes very arid, almost desert-like. That was the first time we got stopped by the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. We thought, uh-oh, what did we do wrong? Nope, he just wanted to know what it was about, because I got the sign on the back of the bike that says Alaska to Panama. So he wasn't there to give us a ticket or any warning. He just wanted to be filled in on the adventure that we were about to take. Along the way, we met numerous people cycling north from all over the world, from Japan, from Russia, from Florida, from England, and we always stopped and we had a chat. The conversation was always the same. Where are you going? Where are you from? How long you been doing it? Let me have a look at what bike you're riding. How much gear you're carrying. That kind of chatter went back and forth, and we made lots of friends, even though our friendship only lasted for 5 minutes maximum before we all moved on our way. At one point, we pulled into our campground that was just before we turned on to the northern British Columbia highway out of the Yukon. And when I'm in the restaurant there, the lady has so many bike people coming through that she has a big whiteboard, or a number of whiteboards, where you sign your name, the date, the direction you're going, where you started from, and Hundreds of cyclists stop and record the information, and it started back before there was internet. Up in that area, internet is sparse. I think we went for about 5 days with no connection at all. But this she started so that other cyclists could read the board and see where their friend was. Oh, he passed through here 3 days before heading to Prudhoe Bay, or in my case, Bob passed through there and I'm heading to Panama City. So it was kind of interesting to see that, and I recorded my name for posterity on their whiteboards there. Then we pulled into the coastal mountain range up into Pembroke. We burnt the brakes out of the car, or the girls did, as they descended a very steep mountain hill down into Pembroke. We had to spend an extra night there. The girls did, but we cycled on, Wayne and I, and they had to get new brakes for the car. Through the beautiful ski area of British Columbia at Whistler and Blackcomb, stayed the night in Whistler, and then it was downhill to Vancouver, the spectacular, I forget what they call it, the sea to mountains highway. We had the Pacific Ocean on our right all the way down into Vancouver to mark the end of section 1. The northern episode was finished and we got to Vancouver. Also at that point in time, the last few days, we met other travelers from around the world. I can remember one lady from Germany in their van. Oh, can I go in and make you lunch? And she went in and made us lunch and gave us lunch on an overlook, looking over the ocean there. I got my battery charged. I rode in with only one gear into Vancouver, found our Airbnb, and again it was in another Facebook friend's house. Never met them before, but they were in Europe on a holiday and they let us stay in their apartment in Richmond, British Columbia for 3 nights. And we got the bike repaired. I went in and the guy said, yeah, I can do it, but I can't do it for a few days. I said, no, I need it done now. We're leaving. How about if I give you a case of beer and a little bit extra, can you get it done? Oh, in that case, I can have it done in an hour. So we got the cable replaced and I had my bike back and running operation once again. And Kim and I went off to a nice restaurant by the sea for a fish dinner and everything, and just our final dinner together before she headed back to Denmark and her family there. And it was great having her for the whole length of that first segment, and we wished her good luck and hope our paths crossed again somewhere in the future. Arriving into Vancouver, I came in from Horseshoe Bay. I followed the coast along through North Vancouver, and lo and behold, there was the Lions Gate Bridge. At the exact same time, a big cruise ship was passing through on their way to Alaska. The other thing that is very satisfying about getting to Vancouver is that I was still on time to get to my birthday, my 80th birthday that's coming up about 2 weeks after, on August 19th, when we're in Oregon, at Newport, Oregon. That's being a millstone around my neck because I did not want to be late to my own party, because people were flying in from Costa Rica, Ontario, Portland, Canada, and I was always worried, am I going to have a mechanical problem, be late for the party? But no, we did it. We got to Vancouver. There's only a little stretch left, and it was awesome getting there, and we're on time, and the Guinness World Record is still operating. No problem with that at all. It was a happy ending for episode 1, northern section from Fairbanks down to Vancouver.